you're anything like me and you feel like you need a lot of pages, you need a big fat book to actually connect to characters, to connect to the story, and only then they will hit. But at the same time, you are sort of also done with the big fat books for now. You still want to read, but you don't want to invest so much time in them, and now you feel like you're stuck in a situation where there is literally no good book for you out there. Then you have stumbled upon the perfect video, because in this video I am going to be recommending you tons of short books that won't require a lot of your time to read. Coming from a person who has her own doubts about short books, you can rest assured that these books will actually hit if they are of your taste. I have made part 1 of this video, which is already on the channel. I'll put the link in the description. You can check it out. There are more short book recommendations. I divided them into 2 videos because you can see just how many books there are, and I am so excited to recommend these books to you guys because I have had the best time reading these books. They have completely altered my belief that I need 800 pages to actually enjoy a story. Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing very, very nice. I'm sending a lot of hugs and positivity to all of you. Hi, if you're new, welcome to the channel. I really hope you enjoy the content, and if you do, please do consider subscribing and like, because that's the only way YouTube knows that you liked my video. I'm going to start with probably the shortest book in my entire collection. This is simply the story of a birthday girl and what happens on her 20th birthday when she's just going about her day, but something weird starts happening. It is less than 50 pages. It is definitely easy to read, but I wouldn't recommend it to a beginner because it's a little complicated. The book I'm talking about is Birthday Girl by Murakami. The book is so insanely short that I would actually recommend this to be your first Murakami book, but I don't, and I don't even think you should read this as a beginner because this is too short of a time for you to understand just how Murakami writes. If you have read even one of his books and now you want a short and sweet story but with the Murakami magic in it, then I think this will be the perfect book for you. I'm warning you beforehand, it has sort of an open ending. It makes you think, it makes you want to have your own opinion in the end of what exactly happened. So if you don't like open-ended stories, then you should skip out on this one. But if you do and you like to go on forums and talk about the book or what it could mean, if you want to read between the lines, even if it is a short book, then you should pick this book up. I read it in like half hour, and after that I thought about it for 2 to 3 days, and even now sometimes I think about the story. The thing with Murakami books is that it is so visual and it really strengthens your imagination muscles. So when I was reading it, I could imagine the entire story beautifully in my mind, but on the other hand, the story doesn't really make sense, but I imagined it really beautifully, so it's always stuck in my head. If you want a story like that, go ahead with this one. The next recommendation is a beautiful book, one of the most beautiful books that I've ever read when it comes to the writing style. It is a story of yearning, of longing, of not understanding exactly what you want or if what you want is completely right, and even then really wanting it. Especially if you're going on a vacation or you want vacation vibes from your bed, I think you will enjoy this book a lot. If you like a European setting, I think you'll enjoy this book a lot. It's very easy to read, and so I do recommend beginners also to read it, but only if you want to enter the literary fiction world, not otherwise, because this is top tier lit fic book. The book is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Asima. This edition that I have is the, I think, 10th anniversary edition. I'm not sure which anniversary edition this is, but this is a particular edition that looks a little big because it's also a hardcover book, but it has less than 250 pages and it does not take up much of your time. This is the story of 17-year-old Olio who falls in love with his father's guest who has come to the Italian Riviera because his parents invite writers to their house to be able to write and explore the European culture and be inspired every year. This time the guest has captured Olio's attention, and you see how the love blooms and where it takes Olio. It is a heartbreaking, painful story, but also written so beautifully, as I said, and really accentuates the pleasures of life. You can read it in one sitting. As I said, it is shorter than it looks, but I would recommend you read it a little bit every day. There is so much beauty to be absorbed if you want to absorb it. Now, there are scenes here and there that are just weird, or they weirded me out for sure. They made me a little bit uncomfortable, and it's not meant for teenagers, even if it is a story of a 17-year-old. So I'm warning you for that beforehand, but apart from that, a beautiful story. Take your time reading it and let it blossom in your heart. The next book is from a very renowned author, but for some reason I had not read her work till I read this book. And then I read this book and I was like, whoa, was that really a short book? Did that really not have like 800 pages? Because how am I so encaptured by it? It has these sad, melancholic vibes to it. It is the perfect book for winters or for the gloomy weather. Like, there's no gloominess right now. My room is filled with sunlight, but I read this when it was raining outside. So that darkness mixed with the melancholy, dark vibes of this book, it was the perfect setting ever. It's so short, it's so easy to read, but yet again, I tell you, take your time with it. Enjoy the art of it. The book is Rosarita by Anita Desai. Just look at the book itself. It is a piece of art within itself. This reminds me, I actually want to message the cover artist and congratulate him on this because it's so beautiful. This is the story of Bonita, who has traveled from India to Mexico. She's sitting on a bench. She's pondering about her life. She knows nobody. She has no connections. She's just here to learn some Spanish when this random woman comes to her and says, oh my god, you look exactly like your mother. And Bonita thinks to herself, how on earth does she know what my mother looked like? They get to talking and the book takes us on a journey of finding out what exactly happened with Bonita's mother and the relationship of Bonita and her mother. It is way more than I am describing. This book delivers way more than it is promising in its blurb. Look at it. It is such a short book, but it will totally engulf you, encapture you. So if you want a melancholic read, it's not exactly sad, it's not exactly heartbreaking, it's something that makes you think, then pick up this book. I have seen a lot of people describe the next book as The Alchemist, but without the bullshit. I personally love The Alchemist, but I totally understand some people just don't enjoy how cheesy it is, how romanticizing it is. Totally get it. This next book does not have those things, but it still has the life affirming magical qualities of The Alchemist. It makes you ponder, it makes you look at the world with a different lens, it shifts your perspective, it makes you see the beauty of the world, of your ordinary life, all of it in a very short time. I read it. I also gave this book to my brother to read it and he also loved it. So this recommendation is coming from both of us. The book is A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which is part 1. There's also part 2 to the book, but I've not read that one yet. Hopefully when I make the next short recommendations video, it will be there in that. For now, this one is basically a conversation happening between a monk and a robot. The dedication literally says for anybody who could use a break, and that is the best way to define the book, because I read a lot of sad books and the reason that they're sad is because they get so realistic. Okay, it's very hard to not look at the world from a pessimistic lens, or even if you look at it from a realist perspective. It's just so black and white sometimes. It's so gray, it's so colorless, and it's annoying how sad things can be. If you're done with all of that and you need a break and you're like, can I just get some beauty so I can restore my faith in humanity, then this will be the perfect book for you. I'm not gonna tell you much about the story itself because it's literally so short. You don't need to know more than you already know. It is not written in a conversation style, but it is majorly the conversations between a monk and a robot who look at life from different perspectives. If you're a beginner, this can actually be your first book too, because it is that simple to read and it is that life affirming, and you'll see why sometimes readers pick on books to escape from reality. I should have recommended this book with one of the books that I have already recommended because it is by the same author. It has the similar vacation vibes. This one also makes you ponder and the writing style is beautiful, but it's not as decorated as the first book. Let me just show you the book first. It is The Gentleman from Peru by Andre Asiman. This one is set in Peru where a group of friends is taking a vacation and they see this gentleman who is always isolated. He's enjoying his own company when one day they invite him over to their table and conversations spark. It describes the setting so beautifully with the blue waters and just the mist and the summer breeze, and it's all so beautiful even if I was reading it from my bed. It's not a conventional love story, so it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it is so short and it is so easy to read, especially when I was reading it. I read it in one sitting. This one I think you can read in one sitting. You don't have to take your time with it and read it slowly and it will still hit. And then it became one of my most favorite books ever because of how it engulfed me. I love this author. I love this book. If you're a beginner, if you want to read a short book with love in it, highly recommend this book. I did not want to recommend the next book, not because the book is literally not awesome, but because it's not very easily available everywhere, even on Amazon. So if I find a link, I will put it in the description, but mostly I won't because it's just how it has been. But I still want to mention it in this video because if ever you're around and you see this book, I think you should definitely pick it up just because of how emotional it is. It's told from the perspective of a child. I made my non-reader friend read it and he was obsessed obsessed with it. We still talk about this character to this day. It is a story of a little boy who is 5 years old, but he has still not started speaking, and his parents get him checked out. What is going on? Is it a disease? Can he not speak at all? But that's not what is going on. He has just chosen not to speak whatsoever, and then we follow him on his journey. It's vulnerable, it's innocent, it's heartbreaking, and it's heartwarming. It's everything in one book, and that too in such few pages. The book is I Hid My Voice by Parinush Saini, translated by Sanam Kalantari. I always pictured this little boy only to be our main character. It was so beautiful to follow his journey, how only his grandmom would understand what was going on with him, because he did not really feel safe with anybody else, and then some events do transpire in his life. Yet again, a very short book, just around 200 pages, but it's a very emotional read, even if you're a beginner, even if you're a teenager. Next one is a short book, but it feels like a long book. If you're looking for a book that will make you sad, that will make you cry, that will make you want to tear your heart out, but you don't want it to be a little life and you don't want it to be 700 pages, then this is the perfect book for you. This is a letter from a son to a mother, but the mother cannot actually read these letters. It talks about the Vietnam War and so many other important topics. But the craziest thing about this book is how it is written. It does not really use very big words, but very simple words are strung together in a way that makes you rethink exactly what you're reading. So it takes a lot of brain power too. I wouldn't recommend it to a beginner, but if it feels like your cup of tea, go with it. You'll just have to pay a lot of attention to it. The book I'm talking about is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Wong. Even if you're paying a lot of attention to this book, it is totally worth it. It has the potential to be one of the best books of your life, once in a lifetime experience. This is not the kind of book that you can just pick up randomly out of nowhere and read it, especially because this is a TikTok book talk popular book. So a lot of people pick it up thinking it's like The Love Hypothesis, The Spanish Love Deception, or so many other book talk books that are so bingeable, but that's not what this one is about. You'll have to pay attention, and that paying attention is what can make the book boring, which is why I tell you, you have to be in the right space to read this book. If you're looking for a deep, meaningful story that you don't feel like binging, but you also want it to be short and you want to get done with it soon too, then this is the perfect book for you. Next one, I'm not sure if it is a sci-fi book or a magical realism book, what genre it comes in, but it has that magical aspect to it, that paranormal aspect to it. It's a story of this girl who lives with her family, but she has this feeling that something very wrong is about to happen, and she is just not in the right place. It's written by an author who's very popular in the Japanese literature world. Her other book also is a very short book, which hopefully I will be recommending in the next short book recommendation video. That book is called Kitchen. This book is called The Premonition by Banana Yoshimoto. There are just some things about this book that did not set with me. It was my personal opinion. Some relationships, like her stepbrother and her, which made me feel a little icky, but it's probably just a complex story that I am not able to comprehend, and so I would not recommend it to a beginner, even in the Japanese literature world, because there's just so much going on in such short pages and there's barely any explanation to it. It has a very dream-like quality, like a fever dream. There's barely any finality that you get. It has that haunting vibe to it. Perfect winter read or a gloomy day read. And if those relationships that I'm talking about don't ick you out, then I think you'll enjoy this book a lot. The next book is one of my most favorite books, and it is from the Indian mythology genre. I read it so long back, but I still think about some of the stories. It is the story of Sita, who once she was abandoned by Lord Ram, goes on her own journey of self-realization, and when she has gone on this journey towards the very end of Ramayana, she meets so many other women who have also been abandoned, or something horrible has happened in their life, and they are also their own journeys of self-realization. All of these stories come together to show us the strength and the empowerment that we can get from all of these women from our epics. Especially if you have never read any book from the perspective of these characters, of these women, then you'll find this book very powerful, and all of it done in such a short book. The book is The Liberation of Satha by Volga, which is translated from Telugu by T. Vijay Kumar and C. Vijaya Sri, the story of Surpanakha, the story of Urmila, of Renuka, of Ahalya. It's also written in a short story format, so you don't exactly have to read the full book at once, and all of the stories do tie in together because of Sita. Sita is the center of it, but it also reads as a short story collection because each story is the story of these different women. If you're a beginner, you can pick this book up. If you want an Indian mythology book recommendation, this is the perfect one for you, especially if you don't want to commit to the thick book, or even if you've read multiple other Indian mythology books that have been told from the perspective of these different women and you think that you'll get bored during this one. That's not what happens. It's such an interesting story. It's really powerful, it's really empowering, and it really opens up your eyes to a lot of things. It's a very, very good time. Next up, I have a dystopian fantasy book recommendation for you. It is a story of a different world where there is no hunger, there is no war, there is no pain, basically there is no emotion. Every year a receiver of memory is chosen who actually gets to see a world where art and emotions did exist, where pain did exist, and when our main character becomes the receiver of memory, he goes on a journey, on an adventure to restore that beautiful world. The book is The Giver by Lois Lowry, which is also a movie, by the way, and it's not like the best movie ever, but it is also not very bad. Cover is actually a movie tie-in edition, and usually I don't like movie tie-in editions, but I really like this one because it depicts what the story is like so beautifully. The grayscale is what their world is like right now, and the colorful side is what our world is like. This book actually made me appreciate the human world so much, even pain to a certain point so much, because all emotions are important and valid, and it made me feel so grateful to be a human being. Great for beginners, great for teenagers, great if you want to start with a dystopian novel but you don't know where to start from. Even if you're an avid reader and you're looking for a short and sweet book and you don't want really heavy world building and all those things to enjoy the story, then you'll enjoy this one a lot. The next book is one of the most unique books that I have ever read. It is so short, even the chapters within itself are so short, 1 to 2 pages long, that's it, and that is something that makes me feel like I'm reading a really short book. They almost read like essays, but they are not. They are the perspective of a woman who is obsessed with a man, the man that she wants to be with, but that man is with somebody else, a woman, and she is the woman that our main character is obsessed with, and we see our main character stalking them, stalking their social media, stalking them in real life, seeing how their lives are playing out from her perspective, and then what she thinks about, how she narrates it. It depicts so many different themes of power, of social media, of class, and of privilege. And the reason the book is so short is because not one word has been wasted. Every word is there for a reason. Every word means something. Again, I don't recommend this book to beginners because it is so complicated to read, but if you are an avid reader, if you've read even like 5 to 10 books already, or if you're actually looking for something to shake it up, read something totally different from what you have read before, and you want a lot of commentary, then you will enjoy this book a lot. I am literally obsessed with this book. The book is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I am in love with this cover itself. It's powerful, it's disturbing, it's haunting, and it's crazy that it's actually a debut novel because the writing style sure did not seem like it. The next recommendation is a spiritual fiction classic. It's very easy to read and it's also a very important read even if you are never going to read any spiritual book ever, especially non-fiction spiritual books ever, or if you want to start your journey with spiritual books, then you can start with this one. Because it is a fiction story, it engages you and it sways you away. The book is Sidharta by Hermann Hesse. It's a story of Sidharta, who is a spiritual pilgrim, and he wants to find the truth of things. He wants to go on his own spiritual journey. He wants to attain nirvana. He wants to get out of the cycle of sadness and of happiness, of life and of death. And he has all of these beautiful realizations on the way that is shared with us. This cover is a beautiful depiction of what Sidharta sees himself as. He sees himself as a river that is just constantly flowing. There is no beginning to it. There is no end to it. And he is in there somewhere exploring himself, going on a journey in this river. Easy to read, beginner friendly. You can read it even if you're a teenager. The next book is yet another classic, but for all of my absurdists out there, because this book is the definition of absurd. It is the day-to-day life of one man and something weird happens and we see his reaction, and his reaction also is so weird to it. This author and his writing is all usually very absurd but also very philosophical that makes you question. The book is is The Stranger by Albert Camus. I have read another book which is a short story collection by Albert Camus, but I have not finished that book, so I'm not recommending it over here. This one is translated from French by Matthew Ward, and now I am so intrigued to actually read the French version of it too. The main character, absurd, his day-to-day life absurd, very pale and very boring, till something very absurd happens to him and then his reaction absurd. I love books like this that challenge me. It's very exciting to me, and it is one of the reasons why I like reading so much, because you can have your comfort reads, you can have your reads that help you escape reality, you have your fantasy and your thrillers. There are so many emotions that can come with reading, but you can also have books like this that are so weird that you're like, oh my god, seriously, what is going on? And the fact that words on paper can expand my mind like this, it's beautiful. Wow, the sun has just suddenly gone. So if you're looking to be challenged, then this is the perfect book for you. Next is another magical realism recommendation set from the perspective of a child. One of my favorite things in the world is reading books from the perspective of children because they're so vulnerable and innocent, and this one feels like a story that makes you want to be a hero. You know how like when we were kids, we all wanted to do something great for the world, we all wanted to be a hero. This book sort of makes you want to be like that yet again, but through a magical story. The book is The House That Spoke by Zuni Chopra, which is a story of 14-year-old Zoon who has had a past, and now she lives in a house and she hears some things, but she totally ignores it because what could it be, till one day she realizes that she lives in a house that speaks and only Zoon can hear it. Oh, I am obsessed with this story. So magical, it's so cozy. It does have its own high stakes, but it doesn't feel like high stakes, it just feels very cozy, and I am obsessed with this book. So even if you're a teenager, go ahead and read this one, go on a journey with Zoon and enjoy it. Next up, I have another absurd book. I have a lot of weird absurd books in this collection, that's what I have just realized, but yet again such a unique story. This is a story of a place which is called The Center, which guarantees that you can learn a language within 10 days of going to the center, and our main character goes over there and just weird things happen. The book is The Center by Aisha Manzir Siddiqui. It's so weird, but it's so good. I could not put it down. The words inside are like insanely big, so you can read it very quickly. I read it in one sitting the day that I received it because I was so intrigued with the concept. What is this place that is guaranteeing that you will learn a language within 10 days? But when you go to the method of how, you're like, oh my god. So if you want a thriller, if you want an absurd read with a cool concept, then this is the perfect book for you, even if you're a beginner. In the end, this is not exactly a short book, and it's also an entire series, but I have chosen to recommend it in this video because for me the entire point of reading a short book is that it does not take a lot of your time and it's very easy to get through. This book does exactly that. It's such a beautiful story that you actually cannot skip out on it. I don't want you to skip out on it. The book and this entire series is Heartstopper by Alice Oseman, which is the story of two boys who meet each other and fall in love. There are so many other themes explored in it. The reason I'm recommending it as a short book is because it's actually a graphic novel, and so it just goes by so quickly. It's great for teenagers also. It's a YA romance and definitely perfect for beginners. With that, we come towards the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you got at least one recommendation out of it. Yet again, I'll put the link to part 1 in the description. Do share, like, subscribe, all of those things if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye.